Joining us now from FEMA headquarters here in Washington is Brock Long, the head of that agency. Mr. Long, let's start with an overview. How much damage has Hurricane Florence done? How much more damage is it likely to do in the days and even weeks ahead?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've still got several days to go. Not only are you going to see more impacts across North Carolina, particularly as it moves from the central to the western area, dumping copious amounts of rains, but we're also anticipating you're about to see a lot of damage going through West Virginia all the way up to Ohio as this system exits out.
I saw an astonishing figure that this storm is going to dump enough rain to fill Chesapeake Bay, trillions of gallons of rain. How much damage is this going to do in terms of inland flooding of rivers, and how do you compare this storm in terms of inundating an area to last year's Hurricane Harvey?
Yeah, so I don't think Hurricane Harvey's a little bit different than what we're seeing. I think if you wanted to compare what type of damages we're going to see, go back and look in 1999 at Hurricane Floyd or the most recent events with Matthew. South Carolina is probably looking at something like a Joaquin that occurred several years ago. So what we do is we work with the state as well as, and we do modeling, and we try to figure out ahead of time where we think the impacts are going to be. The thing I'm most worried about is the isolated communities, those who are stuck in their homes right now that may not have access to pharmaceuticals, food, water, medical supplies, whatever. So we're highly focused on taking care of people and fulfilling that mission, as well as the hundreds of people who have already been rescued. And that's a coordinated effort from the urban search and rescue teams that we pre-deployed many days ago, all the way down to the local neighbor helping neighbor.
What is your sense of the response from the federal level, from the state level, from the local level so far? How much, for instance, did pre-positioning of assets, personnel and supplies help? And do you see at this point any holes in the response from government?
Well, I don't see any holes. I think we were as pre-positioned from the federal government standpoint as we can be. And what's great about this situation is you got strong state emergency management agencies and strong governors that have built capability. North Carolina, Mike Sprayberry is one of the most talented state directors out there. North Carolina's been through this. They've built a capability that we backfill. So the way this works is, it's locally executed, state managed, federally supported, and that's the model that we shoot for. So when Governor Cooper has a shortfall or is having trouble meeting a response or recovery goal, then these guys behind me are coordinating the assets and resources down through him to that local level, and that's what you're seeing play out.
What's your biggest concern right now, sir?
Taking care of people, life safety. I think the message that's got to be put forward to the people is please stay out of the flooded waters. The waters could be charged from electric lines to be down there. Sometimes when people walk on streets that are flooded, the manhole covers could be missing. The road may not even be there. It could have been washed out. So please stay out of those waters. Don't become a victim. And we'll continue to support as best we can, but you have to set the expectations. This is going to be a long, frustrating event for people that have lost everything, that are isolated, the power's off, but we're doing everything that we can to help our state and local partners get this corrected.
I think most people focus on something like this, on the impact on the coast and the storm surge, but as I understand it, we could have inland flooding of rivers that they could reach a crest sometime next week. I mean, that is a very strong potential danger, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. So what happened about a week before this event hit was the remnants of Tropical Storm Gordon, pushed through the mid-Atlantic states, saturating the river. So all that water has got to come down and make its way to the coast, and it's traveling south. So the rivers are pretty saturated, which exacerbates this problem. And you're going to see some dams break, or we're seeing some dams like in Bowling Springs, North Carolina, be compromised. Luckily, there's no life safety implications. So what we have to focus on are there any dams that are potentially going to break that could cause great impacts to loss of life? And right now, we monitor all those situations.
Mr. Long, obviously, one of the things you want to do in these disasters is learn from your mistakes, and the response to Hurricane Maria last year became an issue this week. Here is President Trump.
I think that Puerto Rico was an incredible, unsung success. I think in a certain way, the best job we did was Puerto Rico, but nobody would understand that.
But this summer, FEMA did an after-action report that said this: the agency could have better anticipated that the severity of Hurricanes Irma and Maria would cause long-term significant damage to the territory's infrastructure. So which is it?
Well, look, I mean, our after-action report is an open and honest assessment, but the way that this works, and I keep saying this, is emergency management or successful disaster response and recovery is like a chair with four legs. One leg is the federal government. The second leg is the state and local government. The third leg is the private sector, which owns 85% of the infrastructure. And then the fourth leg is the citizen being properly prepared and neighbor helping neighbor. I think what you saw in the California wildfires to Texas to Florida is all four of those legs were present, so the chair is stable, going into that. Obviously, in Puerto Rico, there were several parts of that chair missing. The Commonwealth and the local municipalities where we're concentrating on building a robust emergency management capability. So I'm one of the largest employers. FEMA is now one of the largest employers in Puerto Rico trying to build that capability. But when it comes to the infrastructure, the greatest thing, the deferred maintenance, the dilapidated infrastructure that was, that crumbled, is nothing that's within my control. But now we've got to go back in and fix and make sure that we're rebuilding Puerto Rico in a manner that it's more resilient, economically viable, so that we don't go through this again. And so what the nation learned is it takes all of us coming together like what we're doing in North Carolina.
Mr. Long, whoever is responsible, officials in Puerto Rico now accept the study that there were around 3,000 hurricane-related deaths. But this week, Mr. Trump tweeted this: "This was done by Democrats, this number, to make me look as bad as possible." Question. Simple, factual question. Do you dispute this number of 3,000 hurricane-related deaths?
Well, there's several different studies out there that are all over the place when it comes to death. And, the official stance of FEMA is, one, we don't count deaths. The only thing that would come, remotely close, the data that we would have, is the funeral benefits that we push forward. I think the president is fully supportive. I know he's fully supportive of FEMA, and he realizes that the mission that we went in to help support was incredibly complex. And there is a difference between direct deaths and indirect deaths. One study could have studied, the entire year that's gone by about the number of indirect deaths over time or whatever, versus a 6-month study in George Washington. So that's, there's a lot of issues with numbers being all over the place. It's hard to tell what's accurate, what's not. But we have got to come together as a country to focus on the rebuilding of Puerto Rico and building a resilient infrastructure. The bottom line is that, Puerto Rico had one of the oldest power grids on the globe, 44 years old. It did not work. And when the power's out, you see escalated problems big time when it comes to a functional hospital system or whatever it may be, working water and different things. That escalates problems in the future, and that's what we're trying to focus on. That's where our attention is focused, and we've got the full support of the president behind us. He understands how complex this has been, and he's frustrated by it.
Mr. Long, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us, and obviously you've got a big situation on your hands right now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.